Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
All I want to know is if you got your popcorn ready. Do you got your popcorn ready?
5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes!
I said, are you strong? They said, I'm strong if you strong. And I said, we strong then.
I'm a man. I'm 40.
Darren McCarty gets his shots in at Claude Lemieux. And look who came all the way out to try to help. Patrick Waugh. Oh, my goodness.
You are listening to the Doc and Jock Show on the Detroit Sports Podcast.
DetroitSportsPodcast.com presents to you the Doc and Jock Sports Podcast. I am the Doc, John McAroon. Joining me, my favorite co-host, Adam the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
What's up, what's up, what's up?
It's
going to be a great week.
You think so?
Week. Yeah, dude, it's the draft week, man. You know I get hyped for this. I watch the Underwear Olympics all year long, sitting there watching them run up and down, do their 40-yard dashes, catching balls, dropping balls, sitting there talking about balls. Shh. NFL draft, baby. Let's do this.
Special guest joining us in studio. We put the call out to Josh Katzenstein from the Detroit News. He took us up on our offer. Welcome to the studio, Josh. We greatly appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thank you for saying my name right. Nobody ever gets it on first guess, and I never would have guessed who was the Doc and who was the Jock, so thanks for clearing that up.
Before we get started, cuz, do you have something you want to tell us?
About what?
Well, last week on Friday, 9 p.m., something came out that I don't know if you watched or not, but I'll play something for you and maybe.
Oh, okay. I know where you're going with this. All right, go ahead.
Do you have an announcement too?
No, just
you
go
want
ahead.
to join the club?
No, go ahead. I like how I was nice and slow to that.
Oh yeah, you didn't catch on?
Well, at the end there, I was like, "What are you talking about?" Announcement.
Yes, for all intents and purposes, I am a woman.
Yeah.
Did you check that out, cuz?
I got it saved to my DVR. I haven't watched it yet.
It is well worth it. I want to tell you. Josh, did you check out the Bruce Jenner interview?
I didn't actually. Somehow, some way, my editor let me take a vacation. My mom and sister go on vacation every year, and they went to Puerto Rico this weekend, and I was fortunate enough to go, but it was the only thing my sister would talk about the whole time. So I'm well aware of his transformation, and even if I haven't watched a second of it.
Okay, cuz, so you have no special announcements for us before we
No,
start
dude, I
talking?
still have a penis. It's there. It's small, but it's there.
Okay, just in
It's
case.
fierce, man.
I want you to know, in this environment, you are safe and free to talk about whatever you want. You will not be judged here at the Doc and Jock
That's fine.
Podcast.
I would, if you were judging me, I wouldn't really be all that concerned. Come on now.
All right. Josh Katzenstein from the Detroit News, I'm sure, has been busy the last couple weeks in preparation of the Detroit Lions draft. I just want to get your, to start off, what's it been like being a reporter for the Lions and coming up with mock drafts and exploring what these Lions might do? What's it been like for you?
It's really difficult. I mean, I enjoy it because I watch a lot of college football every year. I mean, it's something that, I mean, I've watched, since I was a kid, and now at this point, I feel like it's something that helps me, with the pre-draft prep. It helps me with work. So, I mean, by the time these guys are coming out for the draft, like, I have a pretty good understanding of who the top guys are, but then you still watch film and try to break down guys as best you can. But I mean, the hard part is trying to project what the Lions are going to do, because you never know. I mean, the best player available policy is something that I tend to agree with, but it makes, projecting what the Lions are going to do that much harder, because when they're picking at 23, I was just talking to somebody. I mean, there's 10, 15 guys that you could see them taking at that spot. So, I mean, it's just a lot of guesswork and a lot of, you just voicing other people's opinions and trying to find a consensus. But in this draft especially, I mean, outside of like the top 5 guys, if you include, the 2 quarterbacks, Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota, and then the 2 receivers, Amari Cooper, Kevin White, and then Leonard Williams, outside of those guys, there's really no consensus about how the draft's going to go. And when you're picking as late as the Lions are, that just makes it, really tough to have any idea what's going to happen.
Compare and contrast a year like last year where Lions were drafting higher in the draft as opposed to this year where they're in the bottom third. Like, how much more difficult does that make your job?
Oh, it's much more difficult, just because when you're picking top 10, it's so easy to look at the prospects and figure out, like, okay, this guy's in the top 10, this guy's not. And when you're picking 23rd, like, I mean, that's where you start to see guys who are, maybe a lot of teams had like a second round grade on them. That's when you start to see maybe, someone will reach at that point because, what's the difference between a late first round pick and an early second round pick? And so it's really hard. I mean, like I said, I could list 10 guys I could see the Lions taking. We could ask any Joe Schmo on the street. He could name, 10 guys and 8 of them might be different. So it's tough. But I mean, even with the Lions picking in the top 10, most people didn't expect them to take Eric Ebron. So you're never going to get it right. And that's why I think mock drafts are so popular these days because everyone loves speculation. And that's really all it is in draft season.
Exactly. Just looking at NFL.com, 4 different reporters have 4 different people.
Mind you, the doc's got 800 pieces of paper right now in his hand. He looks like he's attending a freaking law symposium.
You're not the only one that's geeking out, bro. I'm excited. I'm all about it. I'm reading Josh at DetroitNews.com, checking out his mock draft before he came in. I'm geeking out too. I'm excited. But let's look at NFL.com. You got a range from DJ Humphries to Eddie Goldman, Jordan Phillips, Malcolm Brown, running backs, potential trade up or down. It's one of those things where we don't know what's going to happen. That's what makes it exciting. That's why we're all going to be tuning in tonight to watch the NFL draft.
That's right. I want to go to your mock draft here. I want to break it down a little bit. Your version 3.0, you select Arik Armstead from Oregon. What went into your thinking about that? I mean, on my paper, he's one of the guys that I want them to target. But what went into your thinking for them getting him where everybody else has him going top 15?
Yeah,
generally ending up in San Francisco.
Yeah, no, that's where I had him landing in my first 2 mock drafts, I believe. Definitely the second one. I might have had him going even higher in the first one. I mean, like I said, it's all speculation, and every year there are some guys who just slip for whatever reason because someone might be targeting like a running back or an offensive tackle, or there might be a couple cornerbacks like Byron Jones or Eric Rowe that end up going in the first round. And then all of a sudden, a guy like Arik Armstead, probably a top 15 talent, falls into the Lions' lap. And I don't necessarily see that happening. I said in my analysis, I don't expect him to be here. But if he is, he would fit perfectly with what the Lions are trying to do on their defensive line. You look at the guys they have, Ziggy Ansah, Jason Jones, all those guys are, 6'5", all their defensive ends, Devin Taylor, Larry Webster, you go on down the line. Besides Darryl Tapp, I mean, they're all just huge, massive guys. And then, Haloti Ngata, not the tall. I mean, he's like still 6'4" and 330, and
he's like 6'4" by 6'4".
Yeah, exactly. And just looking at Armstead, he's 6'7", like 292. He'll probably be 300 pounds when he gets into the league. And that's just a guy who I think when Jim Washburn and Chris Kasurik, the Lions defensive line coaches, get their hands on him, they're going to figure out how he can utilize his body to become a top-tier pass rusher. And I think that's something that would really intrigue the Lions and their personnel department. So if that option was available to them, I think they'd run up to the podium. But like we said, they could see an offensive tackle that they like, could see a running back they like. You never know.
The Lions in the last couple of years have drafted, in the first round, but the players they have selected have not produced the first year. It kind of seems like they're grooming the players, or the players haven't picked up the system quite as fast. Do you think Arik Armstead, if drafted, would come in and be an impact player his first season?
I think so. I think there's a little difference between how the offensive and defensive coaching staffs work. I mean, you look at Darius Slay. I mean, as a cornerback, those guys typically take a year before they start to make an impact. But I mean, Ziggy Ansah had a very impactful first season. I think he had 8.5 sacks. He obviously was still pretty raw, but I think when you're a defensive lineman, there are coaches, and the Lions have those coaches that can simplify things. And so a guy like Armstead, I mean, he's already a decent pass rusher. He's decent against the run. I think he'll eventually be a better pass rusher than a run stuffer. But I think the Lions could just tell him, okay, go up next to Haloti Ngata. He'll take the double team. You just run after the quarterback. And if you break it down that simply, for a guy, I think as a rookie, he can make an impact. Eventually, he'll develop into a 3-down player. And I think those are the kind of guys you look for in the first round.
All right, everyone out there, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. We're asking you to tell us if who do you like for the Lions to draft. We're speaking with Josh Katzenstein from the Detroit News. We got a caller. Let's see what people are thinking out there. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Detroit Sports Podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing great. This is Gandy from Those Detroit Guys.
Gandy from Those Detroit Guys, our guy. What's going on, man? What have you been thinking about this draft?
Man, the draft's interesting. I listening to the show, and I love this feature you guys got. But my question for Josh is, first off, I haven't read your Mayhew article. Hope to read it sometime today, and hope to see you at the draft. 2 questions for him. You have Jay-Z in your your blog, or actually on your Twitter page. You a Jay-Z fan? If so, what's your favorite song? My second question is, would you draft the injured player in Todd Gurley that's likely not going to start the season, or would you rather take a corner in the first round that likely isn't going to produce in his first couple years?
I mean, it's a tough question. First of all, on the Jay-Z thing, yeah, I am a fan. The picture on my Twitter page is from when I saw him at the Palace last year. I also saw him at Ford Field the summer before that with Justin Timberlake. And then I actually saw him 3 times like in a year and a half because I saw him in New York, too. He played at a festival in Central Park the day before the Lions played the Jets, so that worked out pretty perfectly. Tough to narrow it down to one song, though. I'd probably, if I said 2, I'd go with probably 30-something. And then I like Rock Boys, man. I love that beat. I know American Gangster wasn't his best album, but I just love that song. And then what was your question? You said cornerback, or what was the other position?
Or Gurley. There's a debate on the Lions drafting a running back early. They should wait, go after a Duke Johnson, or go after a Coleman, or go after some of the later round guys. But I just don't. I like the Gurley pick personally, but people always say address corner, go tackle first round. Those guys might not play this year, but I think Gurley has a chance to play this year and make a huge impact.
Yeah, if I was
curious to your thought.
For sure. If I was a fan, I look at it 2 ways. I've been saying really since January that I think Todd Gurley would be the perfect fit in this Lions offense, that he would help make them take a big step forward. He'd take a lot of pressure off Matthew Stafford, and he would make a subpar offensive line look better. So if I was a fan, I would definitely want Gurley because that would be a lot of fun to watch. And as a football fan, I just think Gurley in an offense with Calvin Johnson and Golden Tate would just be a blast to watch. But if I'm thinking logically, I would probably want that cornerback because you look at the future of this team, and there really isn't a cornerback besides Darius Slay that you can trust beyond 2015. I mean, Rasheed Mathis going to be 30, 35. Mohamed Cisse, you can't trust him. Nevin Lawson, Bill Bentley, none of those guys you can trust. Josh Wilson, who they just signed, he's 30. So, I mean, at some point, you're going to have to find a top-tier cornerback. And I think, this is a perfect year for the Lions to grab a cornerback in the first 3 rounds, let him learn for a year behind Rasheed Mathis. If he gets pressed into action, that's fine. But you look at what the Bengals did with Darqueze Dennard last year. He got to sit, I think he only appeared in like 5 games or only started a couple because, he was like the 4th cornerback on that team. Now this year he's going to have a chance to start. And I think the Bengals are really confident in that. And if the Lions could do something similar, I think that'd help them out a lot long term.
Yeah, 30 is the new 20 at defensive back, but 20 is 20 at running back. You got to get a young guy fresh legs. They got 5 years, and we sucked so bad at running the football last year, which is one of the reasons why I think that pocket always collapsed, because we really could not trust Reggie. Joik had too much on his shoulders, but, I mean, this could be a good one. Who's your top tackle right now on the draft board?
I would probably say Brandon Sheriff, but I think he's probably going to be a right tackle, and depending on what team he goes to, he might be a guard. Behind him, I'd probably say Eric Flowers or DJ Humphreys from Florida. I think Flowers can probably play left or right. I think Humphreys can play left, and I think the Lions are definitely looking for a guy who can play left tackle. So if they can find that guy, then they move Riley Reif to right tackle, and I think really you've probably improved 2 positions if you can do that. So another guy's Andrus Peat. I don't love him personally, but he has good footwork, and I think the Lions like his size. And I think, and then that's another reason why I think, logically speaking, I probably wouldn't take Gurley just because, or Melvin Gordon. I mean, for whatever reason, people aren't talking about Melvin Gordon as an option very much, but I think he's just as good as Gurley. I just think that if you can improve the offensive line, and you go into the season knowing that Joik Bell is your main back, I think the running game is going to be better because, I mean, frankly, they gave Reggie Bush too many opportunities last year, and you let Joik be the main guy. Let Theo be the change of pace guy, and let a rookie come in and help out as well. Maybe a 4th round pick. I think that's going to help your team a lot more than just improving that running back spot.
Doesn't this team have to go either offensive or defensive line? I don't think there's any other option. The corner to talk about, it's nice. Talk about a running back, it's just like adding another shiny ornament on your Christmas tree. It's about to fall over anyways. You need some way to hold that Christmas tree up. So why not build through the trenches? And you need to protect your quarterback. I mean, this is an offensive line that was, I believe, what do I got here? I got some notes here. I got notes all over the place. They gave up the 11th most sacks last season. They gave up 45 of them, whereas the year previous, they gave up 23, which was like the second least. So you got to make some changes along that offensive line. And if you want a road grading style of running back or you want a road grading style of offensive line, you got to build that somehow. So it almost makes sense to go offensive line or even possibly defensive tackle because you need that because you don't have you don't have the depth there. So why all this talk about a running back?
I mean, I think it's just because Todd Gurley and Melvin Gordon are that good. I think those are two guys that, if they get into the NFL, even if they have a middling offensive line, they're going to be capable of doing some stuff just because they're so talented. I think that's the reason. And you look at the offensive line, it was not very good last year, but I think a lot of those sacks were on Matthew Stafford and on the coaching staff. They really changed their philosophy last year under Joe Lombardi because the year before under Scott Linehan, everything was quick passes. They definitely took more shots the year before, but they were trying to get that ball out of Stafford's hand as quick as possible. This year, in 2014, they tried to let plays develop. And the more time they took, because they didn't have a great offensive line, it opened them up to being sacked more. But, that doesn't really tell you anything about the run blocking. And I think that with Raiola out of there, Swanson coming in, that should be a little bit of an upgrade. But, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they took offensive line with the first two picks, because they could use a tackle and they need a left guard. Mm-hmm. That's the one pick that I'm positive they're going to – that's the only thing that I know they're going to do. I think they'll probably take a tackle and a defensive tackle, probably a running back and a cornerback at some point, but they're definitely going to take a guy that can play left guard or center and kick Swanson to left guard, but definitely an interior guy, probably in the first 3 rounds, because they know that they need to be able to run the ball up the middle.
We can expect this guy to start week 1, is what you're saying.
I would think so, because even if they bring back Rob Sims, I don't think they want to rely on him to start, and I think that's why there's been sort of a snare in their negotiations. They offered Rob Sims a contract like a month ago, and there's no incentive for him to rush to sign it if he doesn't know that he's going to be starting and have an opportunity to play.
Gotcha.
Now I want to talk to you about a player that I can't believe at this point in time in 2015.
You're out of breath over there. You want to talk about him so bad.
No, I'm shocked because, first of all, there was a player in the draft that got tested positive for marijuana at the combine. You would think that they would learn from their mistakes, right? No. Shane Ray, I believe, tested positive for marijuana on Monday.
He got pulled over.
He got pulled over with possession, right? Yeah. On Monday, the day before, the week of your biggest week, and you're doing this kind of stuff, and it kind of calls into question, hey, could he drop a little bit? And the reason why we want to talk about it is a lot of people are slating him 21, maybe to the Bengals. If he slips a little bit, Shane Ray, you draft him?
Personally, I wouldn't. I think it would be a fine pick. It wouldn't be anything that I slam because, we've talked about the Lions are kind of deep at linebacker and defensive end, but I think Ray is the kind of guy who would definitely be one of their top edge guys right away because he's capable of rushing the passer, getting the passer. He proved that at Missouri. I just think that the Lions have had too many cases in recent years, mostly the 2011 draft, of guys that had questionable character that didn't pan out. And they trust Jim Caldwell and his coaching staff to keep guys on the straight and narrow, but I think the timing of Ray's arrest was just so ridiculous at the week of the draft, and I think that's something that it won't take him off a lot of teams' boards because smoking weed is a much lighter offense than something like with domestic violence or anything. But, at the same time, you have to question just if you can trust this guy to be on the field. And if you can't, why would you waste a first-round pick on him?
And this team has drafted notorious pot eaters in the past. So, yeah, you want to stay away from a guy like that. You're right, though. He'd be a great talent, be a nice piece to add, and he would help bolster that defensive line where going into the draft, it's a little bit weaker now because of all the offseason moves that have taken place. So adding a guy like that would definitely help that out.
For sure.
You're right. Character has to go a long way here.
Did you guys check out Jameis Winston talking to Jim Harbaugh?
Dude,
and that was classic.
Guy.
It was really something to watch because he sits there with a man that everyone in Michigan is respecting. He sits across from him, and Jim asks him, you kind of had told us that you didn't have any, significant arrests, and we all know about that whole crab thing. What's your opinion about that? And he's like, well, can I be honest with you? I was told I was going to get it for free. And I love Jim Harbaugh's response. He told him, like, man to man, just because someone tells you that you can take it for free doesn't mean you go do it. There are NCAA rules. And so I found that fascinating that I don't think he conceptualized that he thought that, I can get something for free. I can go do it.
He strikes me as the riskiest number 1 overall pick or projected number 1 overall pick it's like things just don't connect the right way. Like his synapses in his brain don't fire right, because there's just things that you as a NCAA athlete and you as a professional athlete know what you can and cannot do. And I just think he thinks he's above all of it. Like as an NCAA player, you know that you're not supposed to do things like that. But he's like, I'm Jameis. I'm Jameis, baby. I sat there, I won a national championship. Come on, I'm a Heisman Trophy. I'm Jameis. I want crab legs, y'all. Taking me some crab legs. And then rape. What's rape? What's rape? What's standing up in the school auditorium yelling F-er in the P? What is all this? I'm Jameis. Don't matter.
Why?
Exactly. His brain is just, he's on a whole other level. I think he's the riskiest pick probably coming out of this draft. I don't care if you sit there and you tested positive for weed and then you got pulled over with a whole bunch of it in your car. Like, I don't care if you had 18 kilos of weed. I still think Jameis is more risky than you, just because he does things that are just so outlandish and that just don't seem like your brain can even wrap itself around to process how he was thinking at that time. Just boggles me.
Yeah, it's crazy too, because I mean, you look at him on the field. I know he threw a bunch of interceptions last year, but overall, I mean, he seems to have really high football IQ. And I don't remember who said it, but I mean, it must have been in like December or something when college season was still going. I remember someone compared his football IQ to Peyton Manning. And I mean, that seems outlandish, but I mean, you watch him play and I mean, you could totally see it. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's always 2 steps ahead of the defense, and that for whatever reason, he can be that smart in the game of football and that dumb in the game of life. I mean, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I agree with you. I think that if he's in the league in 3 years, I think he'll be a top 10 quarterback. But when you have to question whether or not that guy's going to be in the league, then that's why there's a red flag about whether you take him first overall. I would personally, just because I see the talent, I see the possibilities of him running an offense, especially in Tampa Bay, where he can just throw it up and let Mike Evans, Vincent Jackson go get it, Austin Seferian-Jenkins too. And but yeah, I mean, I understand the questions, and the F-er and the P thing. I mean, that was honestly might have been dumber than any of it, just because you know the circumstances around your life, you know what you've been accused of. Like, just to even be in a situation where you're raising those questions yet again, it just doesn't make any sense.
The guy you're right, absolutely right. To be that gifted and that intelligent on a football field, like, why can't you just play life like it's a football game? Yeah. Just do it. It'll be okay.
All right, so we have a fair question. Who wins a playoff game first? Marcus Mariota, Winston, or Matthew Stafford? You know what? It's an interesting question, because everyone around town's kind of saying, okay, this is the year for Stafford, and you got 2 hotshot quarterbacks coming in.
That's a tough question, man. Unfortunately, I don't know that I can say Stafford first, just because of the division they play in. I mean, when you can't win at Lambeau Field, and until they can prove that they can beat the Packers consistently and on the road, I don't know that you can etch them in to win the division. And if you don't have a chance at winning the division, it's a hard road to even get to the playoffs, nonetheless win a game on the road. So then at that point, I think if you look at Mariota, if he goes to Tennessee, I don't like that fit at all, really.
I don't either.
Yeah.
That seems like that would just ruin him.
Yeah.
He'd be out of the league within 3 years.
Well, I don't think it'll be that bad, but he's not really Wisenhunt's type of quarterback. Mm-hmm. They don't really have the offensive firepower yet. I mean, Kendall Wright's okay. Justin Hunter's okay. Nate Washington's like 55 at this point in his career.
I just feel like it'd be like Derek Carr 2.0.
Yeah.
He'd just be getting popped so much. And you remember how Derek Carr got gun shy later on in his career. Like, he just alligator armed every pass he threw because he was afraid he was going to get popped in the mouth because of his rookie season. He just got ran over.
Right.
So I see that happening.
So it's crazy. I'll go with Winston just because I think.
Wow.
Yeah, well, the NFC South, I mean, and this is assuming he goes to the Bucs. I mean, the NFC South, besides the Panthers, really does not have many great defenses, and I think the Bucs actually have some decent defensive pieces with Levante David and then Gerald McCoy, of course. And I think, with Winston and some of their weapons on offense, if they could get an improvement at running back too, I think they could be a team that competes for that division. And, Drew Brees is getting up there in age. It's hard to trust the Falcons at all, and there's a chance. I don't necessarily see it happening within the next few years, but I'd say it's between Winston and Stafford, and Stafford still has to prove it.
And the NFC South is one of those divisions where you can basically go from worst to first.
Yep.
It's happened, I think, every year in that division except for maybe last year.
Last year was the first time since they redid the divisions, and what was it, 02 or whatever? Mm-hmm. First time ever that an NFC South champion repeated, and the Panthers did it at 7-9 or 7-8-1, something like that.
So all this talk about quarterbacks, let's focus on our guy. Do the Lions draft a quarterback late in the round to sit there and try to maybe push this guy? I mean, he's got all the physical ability. It seems like he has all the intangibles. He's got pieces around him. I mean, I know Calvin's on the downside of his career, but you have Golden Tate, who was a stunning surprise last year. You had some running backs last year. Nobody's going to say that Joique Bell's great. Nobody's going to say Theo Riddick's the second coming of Christ. And Reggie Bush, you just duct tape him and he's still falling apart. It doesn't matter. But you still had some pieces out there, and he still doesn't feel like it can get you to the promised land, even win a playoff game. All he wants a playoff game.
Right.
Do you get a guy in here to maybe push him to help elevate his game?
I don't think so. And not this year. Someone asked me that in my chat a little while ago. Just it's a terrible year for quarterbacks. Outside of Mariota and Winston, like I wouldn't touch any of these guys before like the fourth round. Bryce Petty has accuracy issues. You know, he got worse from his junior year to senior year at Baylor, despite having crazy talent. Brett Hundley is tough to trust. He's a great athlete, but not a great pocket passer. And I mean, besides those guys, you know, you got your Garrett Grayson from Colorado State. You got, you know, Bo Prescott from Ole Miss. I mean, there just really aren't that many good quarterbacks. So none of those guys outside of the top two would really push Stafford at all. If anything, I mean, they'd be an improvement potentially over Orlovsky or Kellen Moore, but you don't want to draft somebody in the fourth round to be your backup quarterback when you have so many other needs to fill. So I think, and then the other thing is looking at the contracts that Orlovsky signed. I mean, he got, I think, like $1.2 million, and I think Kellen Moore got, you know, just shy of $1 million for the next 2 years. I think when you give backups more than the minimum salary, that means that you expect them to be around. So I think the Lions feel like they're set at quarterback. Obviously, if Stafford doesn't take the step forward this year, show that he can find the balance between being the protecting the football and still having that cannon and utilizing that cannon. If he can't do that, I think next year the Lions might take somebody, because next year is a much better quarterback class. But for this year, I don't expect anyone to come in and push him.
And you love the Detroit fans. One of the best jobs in Detroit is the backup quarterback for the Lions. You have people going, you know what? I've watched enough of Stafford, and let's put in Kellen Moore. I think that's a guy that can get us to the promised land. You have a quarterback that's throwing for, you know, and I agree with Martin Mayhew and what he said in the press conference. You got a guy who's thrown for 4,000 yards the last 4 years. It's just now he needs to take that next step. Hey, he's gotten married, and you never know. With marriage, with maybe calming down his lifestyle, he can be a guy that, hey, is ready to go and ready to deliver. And everyone is also talking about, you know, the offense last year was just so tough to grasp from Lombardi in terms of so many additional plays, and it was tough on everybody, including Ebron and Stafford. And so with that, with another year under Lombardi, I do think you're going to see Stafford be productive. It's just, can he take that next step to get us a playoff win and to do some things that that are becoming of a number one drafted quarterback?
I don't really buy the whole learning the new system argument, because it's on the coaches to gear their system to the quarterback. And so, I mean, I think that's why, you know, Joe Lombardi came under a lot of fire last year, because the offense wasn't thriving as a lot of people expected it to. But at the same time, I think, you got to put a lot on Matthew Stafford. There's been all this talk over the years about him, not going to see a quarterback guru or whatever, maybe not working as hard as he could in the offseason. And at some point, I mean, he's got to take it upon himself to really elevate his game to a point where he can make players around him better. And we just haven't seen him do that yet. And, you can, blame the new system for however long you want. You can blame the weapons around you. But at some point, you got to take ownership and just step up to the plate and play better football, play winning football. And he did that a little bit last year. But, I mean, he wasn't able to win the two biggest games of the year. And so, those questions are going to remain.
All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we will have the play-by-play voice of the Detroit Lions, Dan Miller, on the line, and we can continue to talk about what the Lions are going to do in this year's draft. Stay with us. Doc and Jock, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. If you're a fan of Michigan, then you have to check out UofMDiehards.com. Check them out on Twitter. Check out their Facebook page. They are a page that's dedicated to all things University of Michigan. They follow every game. They follow recruits. They have great interviews. UofMDiehards.com. Doc and Jock, check out that website quite a bit. If you're a fan of Michigan, there's no better website to check out than UofMDiehards.com.
I'm go blue, baby.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for your support. Lots of ways to support us here at the podcast. If you like what you're listening to, If you enjoy the podcast, if you want us to continue to provide great content every Monday and Thursday, if you want us to continue to take phone calls, just go to our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Click through those banner links. Lots of great online deals. I know everybody that's listening likes to save money. DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Click through those banner links, bookmark them, and every time you shop online, nothing extra happens. You get charged no more money. But when you shop online through DetroitSportsPodcast.com, they kick us back a little something, and we can continue to provide great content. DetroitSportsPodcast.com. We greatly appreciate it. Yes, sir.
You ain't gotta say too much. Hate when you say that I play too much. When I get too close, I'ma touch that subject. I could read your body, enough said. Quit all that yapping, need less talk and a little more action. Yeah, now girl, keep it G, know you speak a little freak. I can hear it in your accent. Said, tell me, can you understand my language? If you try and ride, just stay in my lane. There's no other way to explain it.
On the phone with us right now is the play-by-play voice of your Detroit Lions, Dan Miller. Dan, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Well, how you guys doing?
Oh, we can't complain. We're excited for draft day. I don't know about you, but this is one of my favorite times of year. It's probably my favorite day of the year. I get so geared up for this.
Yeah, it's always fun. I mean, it's because I think it provides the one thing that you always look for in sports, and that's hope. You always hope your team is going to be good, or hope your team can win, or hope your team can make a move that'll make them better. And it's, I think, the same in, the NBA, and the NHL obviously doesn't get as much, pub as this draft, and Major League Baseball is getting more and more, but it's the same thing. It's a chance to get better, and that's what you like. It's a chance to add talent to your roster, and that's always exciting.
All right, well, I want to welcome you to the roundtable discussion that we are having. We've got Josh Katzenstein from the Detroit News sitting in with us right now as well. So I guess let's get this started. Where do you think the Lions are going to go with their first-round draft pick tonight?
For me, I think at this point, just based on what the board is looking like, it would seem like offensive line or defensive line, just depending upon how things shake out. I mean, look, if you're talking about picking a number 23, it's very difficult to say X, Y, or Z is going to be there. But I think just based on the rating of the players, the grouping that it appears will be available in the 20 to 25, 26 range, it would seem like those two positions, also coupled with the fact that they have significant needs at both those positions, would be an area that they would probably end up having the choice of players from.
Dan, I'm just curious because, you look at this is Josh. Good to see you. I'll see you later, I'm sure. I'm curious. When you look at the offensive line, would you want a guy that profiles as a left tackle definitely, or would you rather have a guy that can maybe play tackle, maybe play guard, just knowing what the needs the Lions have on the front line?
I think I want the best player. If you tell me that the best guy is a left tackle, that's a premium position, and that would lead me probably to go towards him. There are guys out there that have the ability to play multiple positions. The kid from Florida State could play 5 of them. So, I'll take that as well. But the bottom line, I want the best guy. I can move around and reach the right tackle if you give me a knockdown left tackle. So I have some flexibility there if I'm the Lions. So I think that I'm not necessarily hung up on, is he a guard, is he a tackle? I want the best player. Those are the positions I have to fill. If absolutely necessary, and I draft a center, which, the kid that profiles as a center also profiles as a tackle and a guard, I think that you also have the ability to move Swanson back to guard if you wanted to, in particular in a short-term situation, if you're waiting for somebody to develop into somebody that you're more comfortable moving out. But I'm not tied into position at this point on the offensive line. They've got enough holes at guard and tackle that they can move guys around.
Dan, based on need, how would you rank the positions on either the offensive or the defensive line? Which one is more urgent for them to fill?
Well, I think right now the more urgent one is the offensive line because they don't right now look like they're ready to field a team. I think defensively, with Nada, with Tyron Walker, with Jason Jones, with Ziggy, you can get a starting defensive line out there and then fill in the rest of it after that. They don't have a lot of depth at defensive tackle now. They've lost a little bit of their depth, obviously, along the entire defensive line, losing George Johnson as well and losing the top 3 defensive tackles. But, again, I think they had some depth there. I do think you'll see a couple more bodies there. But if you're talking straight out more significant need, to me, it's the offensive line. You don't have a left guard right now. Your tackle position with L.A. Waddle coming off an injury and not sure of his status, you're thin there. I don't know that you want to go into a season saying Cornelius Lucas is our starting tackle. He looks like he's got some ability, and over time he may become that guy. I just don't think he's there yet. So, given a perfect world, I would say offensive line is probably something you'd be able to attack first and kind of commit your resources in that way.
With that said, we all are kind of agreeing that the Lions need to address the offensive line, the defensive line. So that means I'm kind of thinking the Lions are going to draft running back. So with that, the two that most are kind of talking about are Todd Gurley or Melvin Gordon. Who do you think, if available, they would take at running back? And do you think those two have a chance of succeeding if they were to be drafted in the first round to the Detroit Lions?
Well, I don't think Gurley's going to be there. It's just my hunch. I think out of the two of them, that's probably the guy that I would go with. He just seems to be more of a special talent, but he brings obviously a risk of a guy coming off a knee injury. So that's significant. You got to rely on your medical people to tell you, whether or not they believe that's going to be an issue. And believe me, these kids are picked apart very much so from the moment they're available to the NFL teams to the day they're drafted. And they know exactly what's going on with that knee. Now, you can't predict with a certainty how it's going to work out. But they, to the best of their ability, assessed it. I can't tell you what they believe the situation is, but he, to me, would be the guy out of those two. And if he falls, I think that would be a consideration just because he is such a top-notch talent that's fallen because of the circumstances. Check's question, are those circumstances enough to make you pass on him like the 22 teams in front of you did? So that's what you have to weigh. But to me, out of those two guys, Gurley would be the guy that I would take.
Hey, Dennis, Josh again. I'm curious. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Eric Ebron and what he's going to be able to develop into. But, assuming he's the number 3 guy, the Lions probably want to upgrade whoever's going to be the number 4 weapon in that passing game. If they're taking a receiver, whatever round it might be, what kind of guy would you look for? Would you want a big physical guy who could eventually maybe take over, the Calvin Johnson role? Would you want a speedy, shifty guy who can return? I mean, what option would you go with there?
Josh, I think at some point they need to get a guy who can be that return guy. And also, to be frank, some insurance in case you don't have Ebron develop into that third guy in your offense. I think, I want, again, it sounds like kind of a cop-out, I want the best guy. And if it's a small guy that can play inside and he's shifty and he can return some kicks as well and provide some offense that way or explosiveness that way, I would take him. I think, another guy out there, to me, I think at some point in this draft they're taking somebody with return ability. And it would seem most likely that it's probably a receiver, somebody that can contribute on offense as well and slide right into the Jeremy Ross role if he beats him out. But I just thought last year they really didn't get much out of their return game. Now, the kickoff return game has obviously been diminished greatly in this league, but even still, punt returns, you see teams with weapons back there, and it makes a difference. It can set you up. You can flip a field, and I just don't think they have that right now. Jeremy, to me, did not look like the same guy last year that he looked like the first year that he was in Detroit. If he can get back to that, great. And we'll have to wait and see what the situation is. But I won't be surprised at all. And I believe at some point in this draft, they will draft somebody with that kind of ability.
On the phone with us right now is Fox 2 Detroit's head honcho of sports and your voice for the Detroit Lions, Dan Miller. If it comes down to it and there's 4 or 5 guys still on the board that the Lions hold in high regard, and we don't know what they have and what the draft grades are on these players that they're looking at, the chances that they move back, what do you put that at, and how probable do you think this is, especially drafting this late in the first round?
I don't think it's that probable, to be honest with you. I mean, I know it's fun to talk about, and it's something that we all do every year, and it's part of the fun of the draft. But, I mean, again, if you're telling me there's 4 or 5 guys there that they have in a grouping, unless somebody else is in love with one of those guys, they're probably not trading up into that position because, normally teams group guys pretty much the same. It's when somebody falls in love with somebody and worries that guy's not going to make it to them that they make a trade. That's what has to happen. When they're sitting there on the clock at 23, if somebody is in love with one of those offensive linemen and there's still 3 of them on the board, the Lions are comfortable moving back 3 or 4 spots, thinking they'll still get one of those guys. That's when something like that can happen. But it would be surprising to me that it would happen because I think there's a lot of teams in this draft in particular where it does seem like you have a lot of players that are grouped together in the 20s to early 30s where if anybody went anywhere, it wouldn't be a surprise. I think there's so many of those that I don't see the demand that would allow the Lions to make that move. Would I be for it? Sure, because it gives you more picks, and it tells me that you're comfortable with the guy that you're going to get a couple of picks later, and probably just as comfortable with him as you are with the guy that you would have taken at number 23. But if you ask me if I think it's going to happen, I would say probably not.
Okay, Dan, we got to put you on the spot. If Dan Miller has a mock draft, and he's telling Doc and Jock the exclusive, at the 23rd pick, who are the Detroit Lions taking? Who is going to be called?
I've had Lyle Collins for a while now, but obviously that kind of had a wrench thrown in it the other day. It does not seem like he is in an overwhelming amount of trouble with this. I would like to know. I know the teams have a significant amount of information on what's going on with him in this investigation, and I haven't read anything yet where it seems like he's anything more than somebody that they're looking to get some information from. So with no knowledge that he has done anything wrong, and being of the belief at this point, I will just, for the sake of this exercise, say that I don't think that he's done anything wrong. That's the guy that I've said he provides versatility. He can play guard. He can play tackle. So barring something in this whole legal situation that I don't know about or the team getting scared off by it, I think he's a guy that fits the profile of exactly what they need.
Thank you so much, Dan, for giving us a few minutes. We are all excited to see what name will be called, and we'll all be talking about it on Friday. Thank you so much for your time, Dan.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Dan Miller, Lyle Collins, another name added to the list. How are you weighing in on what Dan said?
Well, I actually I've been in the Lyle Collins camp for a while too. I remember at the Senior Bowl watching Jim Caldwell on the field, helping Lyle Collins go to work, and helping him with his technique. So just seeing him at that point, it made a ton of sense, and it's exactly what Dan said, and that's why I asked him that first question. Would you rather have that guy who profiles as a left tackle, even if he's a little, maybe more raw, like DJ Humphries from Florida, or would you rather have that guy who can come in right away and play left guard? I mean, when I asked that question, I had Lyle Collins in mind because I thought until this, investigation came up that he would be a perfect fit. I mean, he's a great run blocker right now. He can get after you, and I think the Lions want to run more. So I think he'd be a really solid pick, and he's a guy who could eventually maybe develop into a left tackle. But I think I'm just looking at Twitter right now, and it looks like teams are starting to question how involved he was with this woman's murder, and even if he's totally innocent, it's one of those things where why were you dealing with this woman at all? Why were you in a relationship? So I don't think he's necessarily off the Lions board at this point, but I think it'd be a good pick as long as he is in fact innocent.
On Monday, this is what I wrote about him because he was one of the guys that I had targeted. Thick, strong, mauling lineman who's very powerful, has the strength and power to set in right away and contribute to the run game. Hands and footwork need to be fine-tuned, and pass protection will be a work in progress. Can play as a guard or a right tackle instantly. So, I mean, I think that guy would fit perfectly, but like you said, now, I wrote that on Monday. Now there's just nothing but question marks surrounding this kid. So if he fell and they were able to swoop him up in the second round, outstanding, but I don't think he'll be there that late in the second round. I think he's too good of a player, and I think that he has the possibility to still be drafted where everybody's projecting him to go later first round.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, the situation, obviously, but you'd think, a few years ago, based on how, football-minded people think, if they found out that Lyle Collins was dating a woman who's, 29, they might give him a higher grade for that because, hey, this 21-year-old's getting after it, but now, obviously there's some question marks. So we'll see what happens. And it sounds like I saw that he's leaving Chicago. He's trying to get down to Baton Rouge so he can try to clear his name. And if he can do that, as I said, I think he'd be a really solid pick.
Now, before we're going to get to Doc in session after this commercial break, but I want to switch gears and talk about this for 1 second with Josh. When the schedule came out, everyone was talking about, hey, wow, what a schedule.
Don't ever let him get anything on you.
Listen,
because the moment he does, he just brings it right up.
Exactly, and that's why I have this microphone, and I want to bring up something, because now I have the person who actually did it in the studio. This is great, and I know it was fun and respectful, but I thought, okay, who am I going to tweet out to get my first reaction? Because I'm Doc is the person responsible for the @Detroit podcast rants and what comes out on that Twitter page. So I'm like, okay, who am I going to get their opinion first? I'm like, okay, let me see what Josh thinks. So I tweet out to Josh, and Josh goes, and he replies back, thank you very much. He goes, the Detroit Lions are going to...
You know where he's going with this, right?
Yeah,
I remember.
The Detroit Lions are going to play 16 teams and, 8 on the road and 8 at home, which was, you know what? I didn't think of this first, and I was kicking myself because the fans also got on you and said, Josh, are we playing 3 extra teams? Because, we only really play 13 teams because we played some teams in our division twice, which then resulted in you saying, you know what, my attempts at sarcasm in 2015 have to end. So right now, at the end of April, we have a sarcasm-free Josh. How is that working out for you?
I hate it. It's terrible. I like having fun. I like having a little humor in my life. But apparently, if people don't understand it, and I immediately came back with a rebuttal. Pretend that you're an NFL coach. If I'm playing the Vikings one week and then I play them a month later, they're a much different team than they were that first time I played them. So that's 16 different teams, even if it's a lot of the same guys on paper.
So I just want to ask then, how do people, you have a solid following on Twitter. For us, really only one or two tweets have really rubbed people the wrong way. People will tweet at us and say some things that are nasty, but for the most part, it's positive banter, and I'm happy with our followers. But on your end, you have, messaged some people who are controversial on Twitter, and you do respond back. What's been your experience with Twitter and, dealing with some of the haters?
Well, I don't love Twitter.
What?
Yeah.
It's the best. Twitter is the best way to interact with the fans, hands down. So for me, it's how you handle it. If there's haters, you favorite the comment or you ignore it. I don't block anybody.
Let the man finish his statement.
No. My issue isn't necessarily with the fans. It's just this idea that, I have to deal with Twitter before I actually, write my stories. And I'm on Twitter the second I wake up to see if I missed anything over the night. And it's the last thing I look at before I go to bed. And I don't want to live my life like that. I just want to be able to work when I'm working. And Twitter has made it so that I'm working 24/7 because you never know when something's going to come up. It used to be, you get up, you read the paper, you see what's going on. And now it's nonstop, that 24-hour news cycle. I live it every day. But, when people get on me, like, if someone gets nasty, I don't have any hesitation blocking, muting them. I don't need them. If you don't want to, I don't care if people disagree with me, but if you're going to attack me or attack something that I'm writing about or attack players, then, hey, you don't deserve to see my tweets. Like, it's that simple. We can all be civil here. So I try not to take too much of it personally, but, that's why it's nice occasionally when you get the compliments. You get a compliment once for every, 30 disses. So I just try to look for those when they're available.
Okay, so I understand exactly where you're coming from. It makes it much more tough because you have to respond to so much more, and you get you probably get some wild opinions and some wild tweets thrown at your way. But it's all about how you handle it. Athletes need to also take the same tack that you are, is just to, hey, don't reply back, be respectful, and it's about having great banter with the people, and it's a way to expand your audience. And you're exactly right, a lot of people are using Twitter, especially in journalism, to get some information out there and to expand their audience.
Yeah, definitely. And to the thing that you were holding over me, I wasn't trying to be overly sarcastic, but when the schedule comes out, I had to do like a game-by-game prediction. I hate doing that. What's the point? Like, you don't know how these teams are going to look in September. You don't know how they're going to look in May. So, when I was asked for my my initial thoughts, it's like, hey, they're playing these games. They're going to play one game one week, another game another week, and it's going to be just like every other season in NFL history.
So that means I have to block you then, because that wasn't the answer I was looking for. But no, it was all good. No, I thought that's how I'm sarcastic. So someone that is sarcastic can read it and just be like, oh, that's an interesting point. But you decided that, hey, I got to be sarcasm free and to be straightforward with these people on Twitter, and that's the tack you should take.
Yeah.
But and hey, feel free. You can ignore any of the tweets that come my way. I'm still going to send them, so you'll see a handful from at Detroit Podcast. But you'll just ignore them or answer the ones that you like. You ain't stopping this Twitter train for sure.
All right, choo-choo all the way into the break. Let's go.
All right. Stay with us after the break. We'll play a round of The Doctor is in Session. Stay with us. DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Doc and Jock, podcast number 90. We will return after this break and after we give a little love to our sponsors, because there are people out there who are looking and listening to this great podcast and are going, yes, I want to sponsor that podcast. All you got to do is go to DetroitSportsPodcast.com, and one of our sponsors, Sport Displays, did just that. Sport Displays are a company that really came up with a simple idea. What's an easy way to hang a jersey on the wall or on any surface in an easy way? Simple. They came up with the Sport Display jersey mounts. They are the easiest and most affordable way to proudly show off your favorite jersey, uniform, sweater, t-shirt, or costume. All you got to do is go to jerseymount.com. That's jerseymount.com. With its unique design, their jersey mounts are the only hangers on the market that can be mounted to any surface. They can be mounted to glass, plastic, cement, signs, trade show caging, cars, windows, anything at all. Any surface at all that you want to mount your jerseys to, you can use this simple device, the jersey mount. Does it allow me to take it off and on if I want to wear it to a game? Really simple design. You can just unsnap the hook, take off your jersey, wear it, enjoy the game, enjoy your evening, come back home and remount it.
But does it look great on my walls?
Yes, it looks great. Check out our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Check out the pictures at our sponsor page, and you can see great pictures, and you can see how simple and easy it is. Even a guy like me who has no ability and is not handy at all. Mount, snap, hang, just like that for $20. That's jerseymount.com. Hang your favorite jersey on the wall. You won't regret it. Great company, great product. jerseymount.com. Definitely check out the guys at the Detroit Sports Nation, DetroitSportsNation.com. Great website. They are unbelievable. They are killing it on Facebook. Give them a like at their Facebook page, Detroit Sports Nation, and definitely check out their website, DetroitSportsNation.com. Our collaboration with them has been excellent, and they continue to be a strong presence here on the podcast because they bring the noise and they have great content. So thank you guys again. We can't thank you enough.
You're the future of our business, and I know when you guys have a podcast like this, our future is in good hands.
You got to check out their stuff. I mean, I'm really impressed by it. You guys have probably one of the better ones I've seen in the country.
Wow.
In a short period of time, you've done good work. Look at me kissing your hand.
I know.
All right, everyone, thank you for staying with us through the break. Right now, the Jock, I'm sure, has 3 great questions lined up, and it's also great to have Josh here. He can weigh in on what crazy opinions I'm going to spew out there. This is what we call The Doctor is in Session.
But to be the man, you got to beat the man, and I'm saying, woo, right here, I'm the man. Woo!
You can tell he loves himself, right?
Oh yeah,
I love me some me.
Yeah,
That's
for
it.
Sure.
You're getting the opinions of one egomaniacal sports fan here in Detroit. Let's love it, baby. Let's do it.
At any point that you feel like just bashing him, just please go right at him.
No,
okay?
man, I'm all about styling and profiling. So let's keep it going.
All right, we got Ric Flair 1 and Ric Flair 2.
Woo, baby,
right.
Let's go.
With Peter Mrazek's recent play during the playoffs, what do you think the Red Wings will do with Jimmy Howard this following season? Josh, you can go first.
Well, unfortunately, hockey is probably my least informed sport, so I'm not sure exactly what his contract situation is. But, I mean, at this point, I think you have to move forward with Peter Mrazek. I mean, no matter what happens, the rest of the postseason, I think that he's proven that he can be a guy you can rely on, and I don't know that Jimmy Howard would necessarily be happy with a backup role. So whether it's a trade or cutting him, whatever it may be, I think you probably have to move on.
Agree 100%. I mean, did you see that 6 save versus Tampa Bay Game 6? I mean, in Jimmy Howard's entire career, you couldn't say he had a save that went to that level. I mean, he brought the house down. I literally didn't know, being at the game, didn't know that it was a save. Literally, because the puck went in so fast, you were literally like blinking for a second, like that was a goal. And then you see the replays, and Mrazek...
Watching it on TV was the same thing. I was like, I thought it went in and popped out.
Right. That's what we all thought. And then when you see the save, you're like, wow. And I thought that, and that's the reason why on this podcast we've said Mrazek is the man. He should have been starting probably sooner than he was given the opportunity. But in the end, right now he is mired in a great playoff series versus Tampa Bay, Game 7. And I honestly am going to reserve my judgment on that question until I see what happens in Game 7. This is the pressure time. He's done well, but money goaltenders show up in Game 7. And if he craps the bed tonight, let's say, for example, we lose Game 7 6-0, and he plays bad, gives up some bad angle goals, he's out of position, then you kind of have to say, you know what? Oh, knock against him. Jimmy Howard has some playoff experience. He can be a guy that can be used in that role as a backup. Will he accept it? No, I don't think he will. But you do have a situation where you can never have too many great goaltenders. The problem is that contract. It's too long. It's too much money. And so for an organization in a salary cap era, you can't keep a player like that on your bench making that much money. So you can't have a plus $5 million goaltender as a backup.
Take it from the man who is sitting to your right. Short and sweet. You started off so strong. You came out just blazing. And then you sat there and you became a fence sitter. All right? You were like, oh, well, you kind of have, I don't know, like this, that, the other. No, here's the deal, right? I'm going to tell you because I'm the hockey-nista in the room. Jimmy Howard's got to get traded. You need help on defense. So you trade him for a defenseman. Try to make it work with the contracts. That's for Ken Holland to figure out. But Peter Mrazek's your number one goalie going into next year, and you have to ride Mrazek. Jimmy Howard has been crushed here. You got to ship him out. Get some defensive help because that defense looks awful. All right, moving on to basketball. If Greg Monroe leaves for free agency, Draymond Green does not become a Piston, your boy Kevin Love files for free agency at the end of the season. Do you bring K. Love to Detroit?
You definitely make an offer. Why not? I mean, he's a guy that is, you've seen now, you're going to see the impact of his loss on Cleveland. They were so close to, taking down the East and being a contender for the NBA title. Right now, with his absence, I'm not feeling it so much. You definitely make an offer for Kevin Love. Why not? He's a guy that is a guy that can score the basketball, is a guy that's versatile, and is a guy that you could build a franchise around. But you're Kevin Love. You're not coming to Detroit. When's the last time the Detroit Pistons landed the number 1 or number 2 free agent? It's not likely to happen in that sense. So, my confidence level would be low that Kevin Love would come here. By all accounts, he's an LA guy, LA bound, and everyone's thinking Kevin Love in LA, marriage made in heaven. So I would make the offer to Draymond Green. We've talked about it in previous podcasts. Draymond Green's the guy you give the offer to. You overpay. You overpay to bring him here. He's a homegrown guy and would put forth the effort and wouldn't take money. Kevin Love, another great option. He just won't be here in Detroit. You won't see Kevin Love in a Pistons uniform ever.
Yeah, I've always expected Kevin Love to end up with the Lakers. I've actually been following his career very closely. I saw him play in high school when I was out in Minnesota. They have a series every year where like the top teams in the state, host other schools from around the country, and the school one city over from mine played against Kevin Love in high school, and he was so impressive. He had like 22 points and like 16 rebounds, like in a high school game, just dominating. You could see some of those crazy outlet passes and stuff. So I've followed him closely, and everything that I've ever seen, I fully expected him at some point to end up with the Lakers. So I fully expect that to happen. But if I were the Pistons, I would certainly make him an offer because I think he'd be a perfect fit here. I think he'd be a better fit than Monroe because with him and Drummond, I mean, you would dominate the glass. Plus, it gives you some offensive versatility. And, I mean, the thing with Love is that he's really thrived when he's had a pass-first point guard. With Ricky Rubio, obviously, he had his best offensive days in Minnesota. That's part of the reason why he didn't get as involved in Cleveland, because Kyrie is obviously shoot first. LeBron is a facilitator 40% of the time or whatever it may be. So I think, Love would be a good fit with Reggie Jackson running the point. And I think him and Drummond would be a really nice duo. I just don't see it happening.
He also is a Stan Van Gundy prototypical big man, a guy who can shoot the three, has no problem rebounding, and has offensive capabilities. So I'd like to see him here, but I think you guys are right. Okay, so Tigers, Our Detroit Tigers, they'll start a huge 4-game set against Kansas City. Arguably, we'll have our 3 best pitchers going during the series. What are your expectations, and how many games do we win?
Hold on. Who are the 3 best pitchers?
It's going to be Price, Sanchez, and Alfredo Simon or Simone, however you pronounce it.
Okay, yeah.
You guys like 4-0, so.
Well, I think the Royals are looking really good right now, and I think they already have this edge. It's crazy to think. I mean, if I don't remember what the number was, but it's early in the season, but they've already had like 40% of the suspensions or penalties because of how many fights they've gotten into already. and it's tough to generate that sort of enthusiasm in April of a baseball season. And it seems like, they're just firing all cylinders right now. Lorenzo Cain's playing really well. Eric Hosmer's playing really well. Their pitching staff's great. And I mean, even without Greg Holland, their bullpen is still one of the best in the league. So I think it's going to be a really good test for the Tigers. And if I was just looking at my phone, it seems like Shane Green's getting killed right now. So if the Tigers can't beat the Twins on any given day, they're going to have a hard time against the Royals.
Yeah, exactly. And right now, I don't know, hopefully the Tigers aren't overlooking Minnesota. That game, the second game in the series, wasn't great. 3 hits, and the starting pitcher for Minnesota shut us down. Unbelievable. He pitched pretty well. And, quickly look at Anibal Sanchez, we talked about it, and now you see it. He's only a 6-inning pitcher. Right now, he doesn't have the stamina to go 7 innings, and he gave up the go-ahead runs, and we lost the second game of the series. But this series versus Kansas City, great matchup, arguably the number 1 and 2 teams in the American League Central. So now we're going to see how they match up in this first series. I just think that if the Tigers can play well offensively and defensively like they have been, then you're going to have a chance at least to get a split. If you get a split from this series, you're all good. You walk away, no worse than 1 or 2 games back in the division. But the worst case scenario, the offense stays cold and we go into that series and lose 3 or 4 or we get swept. If that happens, then, you're starting now down the slippery slope.
That's a huge hole to be in this early.
It's a hole that's, of course they can dig out of it, but you don't want to be 3 to 4 games down in this American League Central. But everyone's saying Kansas City's going to be a team that is going to pepper us for the rest of the season. It's not going to be an easy road, and we only won the division by 1 game last year, and Kansas City took that next step, and now they have that confidence that, hey, we can be back 2 or 3 games should the Tigers have a successful series. They can be back, and they can make that rally, because you see what they did last year? They made that epic rally, and their rally at the end of the season carried them into the playoffs. So this is a team that you can't overlook no matter how many games you're ahead. But this series, I'm going to be looking forward to watching how our pitchers do, how our defense plays, and how Victor Martinez kind of shakes out, because he's been a little bit shaky. You can tell he has lingering effects from the injury, and he's hitting the ball, but no home runs. Power numbers are down as compared to last year. Any game that the Tigers trot out Jose Iglesias, you got to watch, because at any point you could have a highlight defensive play, and you would think, wow, this play that I just saw is one of the best plays of the year. Next game, he makes an even more outlandish play. So I'm glad he's utilized that year off. I'm glad he's healthy, and I'm looking forward to this series, man. It's going to be great.
All right, Josh, bonus question for you. Easy for me to say. We were talking before the break. You're a Minnesota kid. Come from there. Best place to grab something to eat and grab a beer at?
Best place to grab something to eat. Well, I'd have to say 2 different spots. Best place to eat, I would say, is this place called Brasa Rotisserie. It's in Northwest Minneapolis. It's like a really cool hangout spot. It's like the food is sort of like Central American, like mixed with like, I don't know, like soul food. It's really good. They have like, roast chicken, like roast pork, and then like any side you could think of pretty much. And they actually do have like a good beer selection, and it's in this old like garage. So it's a really cool spot. It's normally where I go, like anytime I'm back visiting there. Best place to grab a beer. I wouldn't recommend it for people who are over 25, but I've had a lot of beers at the library bar at the University of Minnesota, so I'll say that. Or Stub and Herbs. That's right in Stadium Village. It's right next to the TCF Bank Stadium where the Gophers play and where the Vikings currently play. They have like 50 beers on tap, mostly locals, and they also have whiskey on tap too. So
nice.
If you're into that, that's a really good spot. And it was right next to our school paper's office, so we used to spend a few hours in there. Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, dude. Want to say thank you for coming in and sitting in on this with us. Appreciate your draft perspective and your expertise.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I wouldn't call it expertise. Let's call it educated guesswork.
Hey, man, you're a lot better than these 2 hacks right here sitting next to you, so We'll take it all day.
Hey, man, you had plenty of notes. You guys came prepared.
Josh Katzenstein from the Detroit News. You can read his work, DetroitNews.com. You can follow him at Twitter, at @JKatzenstein, and I'll definitely retweet a couple of his posts so that you can follow him. Josh, thank you so much for coming in studio. You're always welcome here. We'll chat again during the football season, and hopefully I don't get the word that you blocked me on Twitter. So it's all good, at Detroit Podcast. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John McAroon. Josh Katzenstein joined us in studio for episode number 90. Thank you very much.
Please, Lions, don't screw it up. Please, Lions, don't screw it up.
You're getting the opinions of one egomaniacal sports fan here in Detroit. Let's love it, baby. Let's do it.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me.